I have personally prosecuted everything from low-level offenses to homicides. I was elected the first woman district attorney of San Francisco, the first woman of color to be district attorney in the state of California in 2003. And I now stand before you as the top cop of the biggest state in the country. No offense, Eric Schneiderman.
And how does this top cop propose you protect yourself from being murdered by police violence? Get a job.
That, nothing, talk about violence, nothing stops a bullet like a job.
Who is Kamala Harris really? Before Senator Harris became vice president, she launched her career as a tough-on-crime top cop, rising from District Attorney of San Francisco to Attorney General of California. In solid blue California, Kamala campaigned on the right-wing position of repeatedly laughing at the idea of legalizing marijuana, despite the fact that even her Republican opponents supported it.
Your opponent, Ron Gold, has said that he is for the legalization of marijuana recreationally. Your thoughts on that?
That he is entitled to his opinion.
Ask about your position on legalizing marijuana.
I'm not a proponent of that, but I know there are a lot of people who are. It's not my issue.
Kamala could have joined other states' efforts to take marijuana off the DEA's list of most dangerous substances, or she could have refused to defend the law. Instead, she chose to send thousands of disproportionately black Californians to jail.
Have you ever smoked?
I have.
Okay. Like in
And
college,
I inhale. I did inhale. It was a long time ago, but yes.
I know you have to go. They say you have to go.
I just broke news.
I mean, was it in college?
I want to bring the conversation back to the broken criminal justice system that is disproportionately negatively impacting black and brown people all across this country today. Now, Senator Harris says she's proud of her record as a prosecutor and that she'll be a prosecutor president, but I'm deeply concerned about this record. There are too many examples to cite, but she put over 1,500 people in jail for marijuana violations and then laughed about it when she was asked if she ever smoked marijuana.
While she was the district attorney, San Francisco was responsible for 40% of all California's felony drug arrests of black women, with 50 times the rate of other counties. 1 in 10 of her black constituents were arrested in 1 year alone. Kamala is the one who increased the percentage of them that got convicted. Harris locked up so many people, the Supreme Court ruled her prisons were unconstitutionally overcrowded. She not only refused to release people, she argued that her prison labor, which is legalized slavery by definition, was too profitable to give up.
She kept people in prison beyond their sentences to use them as cheap labor for the state of California.
When supporting legal weed became politically expedient, Kamala shifted to laughing about how she herself smoked while locking others up for the same thing. Even her own father called her out, saying, "We wish to categorically disassociate ourselves from this travesty." As part of her tough-on-crime approach, Kamala assigned senior prosecutors to misdemeanors like graffiti and vandalism, tripling the number of cases brought to trial. Kamala even laughed about putting parents in jail if their kids missed school, disproportionately harming single-parent households, the poor, and families of color, including homeless mothers. In this clip, Kamala describes how she'd brought charges against a single homeless mother of 3 who was working 2 jobs because her children were truant. And this was her success story.
We created what we call the DA mediation program, where we assigned prosecutors to go and sit with the administrators and principals when they met with all the parents. And frankly, the prosecutors in my office who volunteered to do this? My homicide prosecutors, my gang prosecutors. And they went over there and I said, when you go over there, look really mean. And so they did, and invariably the parent said, well, who's the mean-looking dude? And the principal would say, well, that's someone that mean DA Kamala Harris sent over here because she said she's going to start prosecuting you if we can't work this out. And through that initiative, we found cases like the case of the woman who was by herself, raising her 3 children, holding down 2 jobs, and homeless. She just needed some help. But by shining this infrared spotlight of public safety on the fact that her children aren't in school, we were able to figure that out, get her access to services that exist, and through that process, the attendance of her children improved. We dismissed the charges against her, and overall, we've improved attendance for this population in San Francisco by 20% over the last 2 years.
Kamala even pushed a law forcing schools to turn undocumented students over to ICE, separating them from their parents and violating their human rights. Harris opposed reforming California's 3 strikes law. It was the only law in the country to impose life sentences for minor felonies, which incarcerates black people at 12 times the rate as white people. And she did this 3 different times. Even her GOP opponent was to the left of her on this. When this 3 strikes law sent a wrongfully convicted man to prison, Kamala tried to keep him there on a technicality. When civil rights groups and 100,000 petition signatures got him released after 14 years, Kamala had the gall to take him back to court for a crime he didn't commit.
She blocked evidence that would have freed an innocent man from death row until the courts forced her to do so.
Being such a proponent for mass incarceration, Kamala went as far as mocking the popular call to build more schools and less jails.
And we run around with these signs, build more schools, less jails. Build more schools, less jails. And we walk around everywhere, build more schools. We protest, build more schools, less jails. Put money into education, not prisons. There's a fundamental problem with that approach, in my opinion. And it's this. I agree with that conceptually. But you have not addressed the reason I have 3 padlocks on my front door. So part of the discussion about reform of criminal justice policy has to be an acknowledgement that crime does occur, and especially when it is violent crime and serious crime, well, there should be a broad consensus that there should be serious and severe and swift consequence to crime.
Kamala also defended the discriminatory practice of cash bail in court, even fighting to raise cash bail costs.
And she fought to keep cash bail
Congresswoman.
system in place that impacts poor people in the worst kind of way.
She also opposed a bill that would reform civil asset forfeiture, going as far as to sponsor a bill allowing cops to steal even more money from people before charges are even filed. Kamala even lied about her state solitary confinement in order to block a suit by inmates. She claimed that there were none in California, when there were actually about 6,400 victims of the practice, which is considered torture. Kamala also ignored pleas from the Black Caucus and civil rights organizations, choosing to oppose bills to require independent investigations of police shootings and statewide use of body cams. In 2012, cops shot an unarmed Latino man in the back and handcuffed him as he died. Then they used less lethal guns and dogs to attack concerned women and children before fatally shooting another unarmed Latino man in the back the next day. Kamala refused to investigate. When her cops shot a mentally ill woman, Kamala responded by prosecuting the victim. When multiple cops raped an underage girl, Kamala refused to investigate that too. When a police misconduct case revealed racist and homophobic texts being sent by cops, the San Francisco public defender begged Kamala to investigate. And of course, she refused. Harris even went so far as to hide the names of 135 cops with misconduct histories and put one of her campaign donors in charge of the review. Kamala's continued protection of killer cops resulted in liberal California having the fourth highest rate of black people shot by police. And what was Kamala's solution to police violence? Nothing stops a bullet like a job.
That, nothing, talk about violence, nothing stops a bullet like a job.
According to her, if you want to avoid being murdered by cops, you need to just get back to work. And as if the extrajudicial executions weren't enough, Kamala used a technicality to kill a ruling that the death penalty was unconstitutional so she could continue sentencing disproportionately black people to die. Even her GOP opponents opposed the death penalty. When evidence pointed toward a black defendant being framed by police, Kamala blocked DNA testing so she could keep him on death row. Kamala oversaw a state prosecutor falsifying a confession to get a life sentence and then destroyed the evidence, upheld a conviction secured by a prosecutor lying under oath, and oversaw the framing of another man.
The District Attorney of San Francisco, Kamala Harris, appeared in the courtroom during your trial twice.
Yeah, the two times that Kamala Harris showed up to my trial was when I got convicted, also when they laid down the sentencing. She was there to set her presence, almost take pride in getting a conviction. When I put in my appeal, the people that's fighting against my appeal to keep the conviction is the Attorney General office. You see Kamala Harris' name at the bottom. And now it's starting to feel a little personal.
When you win the $13.1 million, it's a massive settlement. Did you feel like that was enough?
There's not an amount that could get back those 7 years.
Kamala systematically violated defendants' civil and constitutional rights in a crime lab scandal and even kept the Orange County DA's office from being charged for running an unconstitutional jailhouse informant program. And to add insult to injury, Kamala refused to prosecute her powerful friends. Her associate even got away with operating a fake police force. Somehow, all the charges were dismissed. After Steve Mnuchin's bank's predatory lending and foreclosure fraud broke the law over 1,000 times and ruined the lives of thousands of homeowners, Kamala refused to prosecute him, kept him free to donate to her campaign, and he later became Trump's Treasury Secretary. Kamala refused to prosecute PG&E for its massive gas pipeline explosion, leaving them free to exploit hurricane-racked Puerto Rico and kill at least one person in California with preventable blackouts before its consultants went on to run her 2020 campaign. Kamala didn't properly investigate the San Onofre scandal to protect her political allies and refused to investigate Herbalife's exploitation and fraud, receiving donations from people connected to the organization. Kamala also refused to review a case in which there was reasonable suspicion that police officers were involved in the death of a woman until it lined up with her next election campaign, after the statute of limitations had ended. She also refused to review a case in which a wealthy big pharma CEO killed his wife and made it look like a suicide after their son also died under mysterious circumstances. And get this, Kamala even protected pedophiles who raped children by actively aiding their cover-ups. She even took money from Jeffrey Epstein's law firm and defended an unconstitutional sex offender law that actually increased sex offenses.
The bottom line is, Senator Harris, when you are in a position to make a difference and an impact in these people's lives, you did not. And worse yet, in the case of those who were on death row, innocent people, you actually blocked evidence from being revealed that would have freed them until you were forced to do so. There is no excuse for that. And the people who suffered under your reign as prosecutor, you owe them an apology.
Now, there's more we can say here, but it's going to have to wait for another video. If you want to see part 2, let us know by giving this video a like and leaving a message in the comment section. The point of this video is to tell the truth about a person who may become the next president of the United States. If you benefited from this video, share it with others. We'll see you in the next one.